open session, and we, as we typically do and always do, we'll start with a pledge, and I'm losing my voice already, so Brad, if you
Sure. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, everyone. And we are back, and we have special guests with us, and we will get to our special guests shortly. There's no modifications, Brad, right?
No.
Okay, good. Since there are no modifications to the agenda, we don't have to prove that. We're very happy because we are going to receive and hear from delegations, and we have a delegation from IPEI, Kids Discover the Trail, one of our favorite programs that we are we benefit from IPEI funding Kids Discover the Trail, and Steve and others and everyone, welcome.
Thanks, man. Hi, good evening. Good to see all of you. My name is Star Bressler. I'm the Executive Director of the Discovery Trail, and I'm here tonight with Steve Manning, Ithaca Public Education Initiative, and Randy Beckman, who's going to take over for a minute.
So hi, I'm Randy, and I teach first grade at Bell Sherman School, and I also help organize Kids Discover the Trail Ithaca. And I'm sure you all know it as the program that takes all pre-K through fifth grade students to the Discovery Trail sites in our county. But what some of you may not know is its history. Many years ago, there were significant tensions at Ithaca High School. And a group of community leaders convened a round table to try and propose some ways to address these conflicts and issues. And one of the programs that was born out of this round table was Kids Discover the Trail. And it's the program that provides field experiences for pre-K students to the Johnson Art Museum, kindergartners to the public library, first graders to the Museum of the Earth, second graders to the Cornell Botanic Gardens, formerly the Plantations, fourth graders to the 8 Square Schoolhouse, the History Center site, and fifth graders have 2 trips, one to the Keegan Nature Center for team building and one to the Lab of Ornithology to study habitats. Students have pre- and post-trip lessons that result in a full field study experience. But this program differs significantly from other programs of its kind because of its social component. Children from 2 different elementary schools who will ultimately feed to the same middle school go on trips together. So they write friendly letters, they have Skype visits, they might go sledding together, all as a way of getting to know children who are different from themselves. Last week I heard of 2 classes who used Seesaw to send selfies of each other with descriptors. Another class used Google Slides to make Venn diagrams, what was the same and what was different about each of the children, which was, I thought, amazing way to go about that. In addition, children receive a take-home book that connects with their program, and they can go on additional buddy-up trips to increase the social component of the program. So through site visits and shared studies, the program meets board equity and excellence goals. And I have to say there's a whole lot of ancillary benefits as well. Teachers, through our evaluations, say they really enjoy working with other teachers from other schools. We partner veteran teachers with new teachers for a smoother transition, and it sort of serves as another form of an induction program. But what I did do was I went into a 4th grade class. This was unrehearsed, and I just asked them 2 questions. What did you learn or like from KDT, and what do you remember about your buddy? And I should tell all of you that there was a sub in the class that day, although it had all been planned, and the sub wouldn't let me in the room because I didn't have my tag on. I had to go to the office. I was like, do you know who I am? I've lived here for 35 years. Anyway, so good security measures going on. Here we go.
The thing is that it's fun to learn things that you didn't really believe or you didn't know.
But I really like the plants that would move if you would touch them. I got a library card
At the science center, I learned a lot about we were doing elephant toothpaste. Like once I didn't believe that dinosaurs were real, and then I learned that dinosaurs were real, but then I didn't know, I thought dinosaurs only eat meat. But then I learned that there were these really tall dinosaurs that have a tall neck for a reason, so that they can get like leaves and everything, and like I definitely remember seeing the huge woolly mammoth that was like standing there and how much we learned about it.
And we made windmills. I was having trouble with that, but everybody else was doing it, and then kids came over to me and helped me with it. And then I had really fun because like everybody was trying to explain it to me.
My buddy liked to play soccer, and I like to play soccer too.
He likes to play video games.
I had my buddy last year. She dyed her hair, and she liked dogs. And I definitely think those letters that we wrote to them really helped us learn about our buddies.
And that was really fun, just talking to them and asking them questions and like trading information. Well, I remember that I really enjoyed working with my buddies, and I even every year I would love having a buddy to meet, especially because they didn't go to a school, so I got to meet new people and that was really fun.
I really like the 3 rounds because they eat meat, and I like meat even though I just started being a vegetarian.
So, just a quick thank you to all of you and the teachers and our principals and the secretaries and bus drivers and school personnel and everybody who helps to make this program so amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
Thanks.
I want to thank Randy also while we're here, because you can see Randy is incredibly dedicated to this program. She's a first grade teacher at Bell Sherman and has helped grow the program over the years. I think we're in our 13th year, and each year it evolves, and Randy's been instrumental to that. So we couldn't do it without you. Yeah. And I'd like to thank IPI, another one of our partners, and Ithaca City School District. All of us collaborating together have made this program possible. And as a result of that, this school year, the Kids Discover the Trail will reach 80% of Tompkins County District elementary students. We started expanding several years ago, and it's such an amazing program. We're happy to be able to reach more of our county. Our goal is to provide equal access to the education and resources of the Discovery Trail and this education program. And the success of the program in Ithaca has really provided a valuable model that we've been able to, have a solid program and then be able to expand it out to the county. And so we're very grateful for your support of the program and providing Randy Beckman to be our liaison. This school year, we're expecting that 100% of all of the elementary school students in Ithaca will participate, which is amazing. That's over 2,592 elementary students, and that will provide a total of 2,998 field studies because the 5th graders attend both the Pagan Nature Center and the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. In addition to that, as Randy was talking about the Buddy Up trips, we expect over 100 extra classrooms will go on these additional trips together. They go to parks, to each other's schools, to many different locations. Included in your packet is the annual highlights from last year, and I printed out a few copies if you didn't get this, but this just summarizes, on the back it summarizes the location, the grade pairing between the school and the location, and the book that goes with the program. We'll leave these for you if you want a copy of the books. And as we mentioned, the program is independently evaluated each school year, so all of the teachers that participate fill out surveys, and we're always using that feedback to improve the program. We'll leave these, so there's the pairing of the books with each grade, and so we'll leave a set of the books here.
That's great.
And I think Steve wanted to talk about one of the books.
I do. IBEI is here to celebrate the work of Kids Discover the Trail Ithaca. We're here because these wonderful ladies make me look really good. They are fantastic leadership for this program. We're so proud of what it's become. We're so proud of our role in starting it and helping it to create opportunities for unifying experiences for all of our students across the district. And we're really proud to continue our programmatic support as well as our funding support for the program. And I want to take a moment now and recognize Mary Granger for teaching me the value of KDT and the story behind the relationship between our organizations. And this year, working with Star and with Randy, we have dedicated one of the books being given out to every student who goes to the Cornell Botanic Gardens in her honor. So just recognizing her connection, that is one of the connections between our programs. So thank you, Mary, for your passion for the project, and we're proud of how much it's grown.
Oh, absolutely.
And then, so did you have something else to go? Okay. So we have a check here for you that you can see down here.
Yeah, I got Bluebell's attention.
The Discovery Trail and IPI work with local businesses, foundations, parents, individuals to fundraise to make this program possible. So we're really pleased to present to you a check for $65,442 for this school year's program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Steve. Do we do the big check picture? I mean, don't we? Definitely do a big check. Big check picture, please.
Star, Randy.
Right, everyone, and
They picked up all their things.
Yeah, I want to get that to the big money.
Don't get too excited, we haven't accepted it yet.
Big money.
He just wants to hold on to it and pay it too.
Yes, it'll stay there.
Check this day long.
It's the next item.
We can always leave with it.
great. Oh, thank you.
We leave a set of
That would be awesome. Because,
Oh,
we have
absolutely.
some young ones in the house.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Once again. Thank you. Well, that was the extended version of a public comment, but anyone else that wishes to speak? I'm not seeing much in the way of public, and no one signed up, I don't believe, right? No. So we're going to move on to student reps, because we have student reps from Ithaca High School.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So Student Council currently is trying to organize a safe space hub at IHS. So a lot of students recently have been expressing a lot of feelings about emotional issues and anxiety, dealing with like schoolwork and having to take tests and just overall student stress. So Student Council is trying to reach out to the students and work with certain guidance counselors and teachers to organize maybe or designate a specific room in the school to have students come in and sort of cope with their stress with the help of these adults who can help them deal with their emotional stress. Student Council is also right now planning field day. So field day is usually near, I think it is actually the last day of school every year, and basically it's sort of a celebration of completing a full school year, and basically students are released early, and for around, I think the field day lasts around 3 hours, and basically there are a lot of different activities to do outside. Usually most people actually don't participate in field day, they just like to sit in the grass and just talk, and there's actually a lot of people who try to leave without the permission of administrators, so that's always sort of been an issue. So Student Council is trying to figure out more activities like face painting or different field games like kickball to keep students active on field day. And also some other important upcoming events are Junior Prom, which is happening on May 19th at the Johnson Museum in Cornell. The school-wide elections is happening on May 25th. Senior Prom is scheduled to be on June 16th. And the pep rally was supposed to be, the spring pep rally was supposed to be on June 8th, but there was a survey that Student Council released, and unfortunately most people at our school didn't seem to want to have a spring pep rally, which is kind of a shame. So I guess there's not going to be a recognition of spring sports. And the Saga Drag Show is going to be in the Black Box Theater on May 18th. And then also in the Black Box Theater this Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. is the first IHS K-pop dance club concert. And I believe it's going to be around an hour long. And there are around 15 or 16 students who are on the IHS K-pop dance club team, and they'll be performing around 8 different songs.
So for sports, lacrosse, the boys lacrosse team has a game today at Johnson City, and on Thursday they have a home match against Corning. And so for clubs, the Model UN CMON competition was this past Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at Cornell. And overall, it was a very valuable experience in fast-paced, challenging committees debating global issues. So IHS's school newspaper, The Tatler, has chosen a new editorial board, and they have added a new editorial position, the archivist. And the job of the archivist is to maintain the archives of The Tatler and add current issues of the Tatler to the archive site, as well as learning more about the Tatler's history. And so, unfortunately, IHS's mock trial club lost the county competition 2 weeks ago. But congratulations and good luck to ICSD regionals, which will take place this weekend. And so, the green team has been conducting a survey, a school-wide survey, to collect information about student accessibility to water bottles and their usage to decrease the reliance on plastic cups.
So today, actually, after school was the annual slam poetry contest in the Black Box Theater. For those of you who are unfamiliar with slam poetry, it's basically, it can be like known as performance poetry or spoken word. It's usually sponsored by the IPEI, and they supply prizes for those who are particularly creative. And there's a special award entitled the Social Justice Award for a poet who speaks to a very important and relevant social issue. It's put on by the high school English department, and today they had a lot of people perform. I think roughly 30 students in grades 9 through 12 performed, just people who love poetry as well as students who were motivated by the extra credit that their teachers were giving out for those who performed. I went and I watched the entire contest, and I thought that it was wonderful. Students spoke about a varying range of topics, from general social issues to issues that they themselves have faced personally, to just their everyday lives, to school. So that was pretty cool. And then also I have a question. So this past week, or last week, in student council, we were discussing ways to sort of increase school spirit, and maybe ways to make next year's Spirit Week a bit better. And I have an older sister, and when she went to IHS, they had Color Day. And I was wondering what happened to Color Day, and if it would be possible if we could bring it back.
Say a number of the board members.
Let's just say it didn't end well.
Yes. Yeah.
No.
Basically, it created a lot of conflict between classes. So it was decided that the whole idea of school spirit was to bring the whole school together and not have juniors and seniors.
It went beyond competition.
It went beyond competition, yeah.
There were some violent incidents.
Property destruction.
Property, yes,
Well,
not person against.
It wasn't pretty.
Well, it really depends on what you consider Color Day to be. At one point, the separate classes wore a different color,
Right.
but if that's what you mean, no, I think that's, we're not going to go back to that. I sat in on a meeting a long time ago when we were discussing Color Day and how to, where it was going, and the leadership of the class said, well, it's our opportunity to create chaos, and meaning that's that was one of the objectives of Color Day, was creating chaos. That was a bit much for the community. That's chaos. Change can be good. Things happen when you create chaos. So, but then eventually it became more of a Spirit Day for and celebrating the high school colors all together. And so if that is not where folks want to be, then I think now you're looking at, well, we don't really want to do that pep rally in the spring, and it seems like we need to figure out, okay, what's next? We still need to have a way to bring the Ithaca High School community together, celebrate all the great things that happen here athletically, the fine arts, really what happens every day, in school. So how do you do that? And I think you're struggling with that a bit. What's next? Because we did this for a while. Field Day was a response to the original Field Day was a response to that day of chaos. And so, okay, let's do Ithaca High School Slope Day, basically. And no, I'm serious. So, Cornell does Slope Day. So what can we do to mimic, basically, have an afternoon where it's, Ithaca High School Slope Day, and that's where the Field Day came from. Where can we come together to celebrate the Ithaca High School community? So, it sounds like, well, nobody really wants to do Field Day, so okay, what's next? And I think we would look to you to, what's next to bring the Ithaca High School community together. There's a bit of a history here, obviously. So that was just my little board response, I think. And Edie, go ahead.
I have a question for the high school representatives. There was this little play we heard about that might happen this week. Any information or update on what that could have been about?
You guys didn't go?
I'm not attending.
Well, I saw the previews in
I
school.
went on Friday night, and overall, I thought it was an absolutely wonderful performance. I was so happy and excited to see a lot of students who I know would never have considered participating in musicals or musical theater before up there on the stage. I talked to a lot of people after the show, and they were just talking about how much they loved the overall community. They loved performing. They had such a great time. I took my mom with me, and even she loved it. It was just people of all ages, and they could relate to it. So it was I thought it was wonderful. It was a rave review for me.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Oh, what?
I'd just like to agree with you. I thought it was fantastic. I was on a good night, so that I was really delighted to see it. It was a fantastic performance. And I also did get to go to the mock trial, and I enjoyed watching both teams. And congratulations to ICS. They're not here, but both teams actually did really well. It was really interesting. So.
Go ahead, Pat.
Add my delight in the play, more energy than I think I've ever seen in an audience before, a lot of enthusiasm, great cast, very enthusiastic cast. And I just want to add a comment on your announcement about the Tatler. As a historian whose daughter is a librarian, I applaud the addition of an archivist. You could certainly, I imagine, once your archivist is in place, you could look up the history of Color Day. Get some of the accounts. I think there's some pictures. And there is no better way to look to the future than by learning about the past.
From a historian.
Yeah, I'm the only one who thinks this way.
No, you're not. You're not. Brad, go ahead.
And then the day after the play ended, I had the opportunity to participate in a workshop with Cynthia Henderson from Ithaca College, an interactive exploration of race privilege in the learning environment. Myself, there were 2 administrators, 2 teachers, and 24 students from the high school. It's an excellent program, a first step to further conversations. It was interesting that the Students United chose not to come, didn't want to participate in that, which is unfortunate that they didn't want to do that. It was a great experience for the couple dozen who were there, and I enjoyed working with them for 4 hours.
Thanks, Brad. Anyone else right now?
So is this board responses?
This is board responses.
I went to the play Friday night. It was definitely amazing, and the transformational thing for me was the positive energy, and the students were having fun. And a number of students that I know have never even thought about going on a stage and performing before an audience did it, and they did an excellent job. And really, I know they made Teen Vogue and all this other attention, but the fact that we could get so many new students introduced to theater was really impressive.
Thanks. Anyone else? And congratulations again to LACS for the mock trial win. Do we need to look into the mock trial team at High School? I mean, are there issues?
I don't know, they're currently in search of a new advisor.
Oh, okay, all right.
No, they were both really, really strong teams. So
Yeah, sure, Ann, sure.
LACS just argues better. What can we say?
That, yeah,
They're more practiced.
well practiced at it, so I think that's without a doubt. Thank you, IHS. That's excellent. I appreciate that. And let's go on to consent.
I'll move the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Then we read, did I not see some IPI appropriations?
Yeah, well, there's the 65,000, which is coming 21,000 from IPEI and 43,000 from the Discovery Trail. And there's what, 3 other IPEI grants,
Right.
another $2,000 there, and a number of things like that. I don't believe there was anything.
I also want to make.
Explanation.
I'm sorry, Brad, were you done?
No, I'm not sure there was anything that needed explanation from the Finance Committee.
I do want to make mention for the folks listening and watching at home that the consent agenda also includes part of a grant that the City School District is participating in for My Brother's Keeper. It's a project that folks have been trying to be involved for the past year and a half, if I'm not mistaken. And so it's a great effort, and I think that this is the year that we'll start hopefully seeing some of this sort of structural, systemic expansion to do some good work. So please pay attention to the My Brother's Keeper grant that we're participating in.
And for the state of New York, that was rapid.
Yes.
That's a year since it was.
That's absolutely
granted.
correct.
Unlike the Smart Bond, it's,
2 years in waiting.
2 years in waiting.
But to Sean's point, that grant, My Brother's Keeper grant, is significant. It's
Yeah.
how many is it?
$215,000 for this upcoming year.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a multi-year, right? How many years? Is it 5? 3? 3 years. Yeah. It is not. It's a important program. So move seconded. Anything else? All in favor? That is everyone. And so Dr. Brown.
Thank you for the opportunity, Ms. Dansley. A couple of items, some updates and some news items. Well, one, in follow-up to the My Brother's Keeper Initiative grants, this Saturday, the state symposium is going to be taking place in Albany. And last year we sent some young people down. I went down. This year, Laura Evans is going down. And we have 2 of the state's, I think there are 12 fellows, 2 young people in our school district who have been recognized by the state for participation in this program, who are leaders. I can't announce their names yet because the state hasn't put out the press release, but we will have 2 fellows who will be representing us in Albany this week. So in an upcoming board meeting, Ms. Laura Evans is going to come talk about inclusion work and also the work of My Brother's Keeper Initiative and what's happened to date. So we're looking forward to that update soon. Again, we're very excited about that grant and the work that's happening about it. Some other updates in response to some of the conversations we've had over the last couple of months. We have planned a DASA training and a community conversation for Enfield Elementary, and that will take place on May 2nd. We're looking forward to it. We have some folks from TSK BOCES coming in to facilitate conversations about DASA and what is DASA, how do we implement it, what are best practices around DASA, and so forth. So May 2nd, that will be happening. We've talked about anti-marginalization curriculum, and I've written about it in our Inside. I said we will be sharing more information as we develop it, but we put out the call for lead curriculum reviewers, and I can just tell you some of our best educators in our community are coming to the table to be a part of this committee. Some folks from IC, some community members, and some of our outstanding educators are going to be a part of an initial group that's going to be doing some design work, and we foresee that group growing over the coming months and into the summer, with hopes that at some point in the very near future, every young person in our school district will be immersed in a case study or project that's going to be focused on anti-marginalization. That's developmentally appropriate. That was a mouthful, but that means a lot for the folks who are developing curriculum, and something that will be the first of its kind in our nation, and we hope to build it out quickly and also get some support to have a model that can be replicated, not only in our region but across the nation as well. And also we've talked about facilitated conversations on race. We're continuing the conversation similar to what Mr. Granger participated in with quite a few students a few weeks ago. These facilitated conversations are going to be led by Laura and Kirby. Everybody knows Laura and Kirby, but Kirby Edmonds and Laura Bronca. They're going to be coming in to Ithaca High School at first, and then we're going to do some things at the middle school also, but at Ithaca High School, they're going to be there during lunch periods on April 26th, May 1st, and May 3rd. Those are going to be lunchtime conversations, so young people who wish to engage in some initial conversations about race, facilitated conversations about race, are going to have opportunities to go, to be part of that. And then there will be followed after school, more in-depth conversations that will occur in May. So we spent the last month planning this, spent a lot of time planning with Laura and Kirby, some community leaders and our building leaders. And now we're ready to sort of roll this out. And we're hoping young people will come to the table and engage in some real talk about race issues that are impacting our community and nation. So a lot of updates. Again, folks, we're listening to our community. We're trying to be we're responsive to a lot of emerging needs. But I just wanted to share with folks that we are actually doing some things that are going to be happening, have happened, and will continue to happen in the coming weeks and months. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. And Dr. Brown, I did see a press release this week regarding Ithaca the district being named once again one of the top districts in the country for music
education. 6th year in a row. It's almost like it's not news anymore, but that is a pretty impressive honor. We're one of 350 districts in our country to be named as one of the top music education community school districts in the nation. That's a pretty impressive honor, and we've received it now 6 years in a row.
We don't want to just assume that we will always get that, and don't want to diminish the work and effort by the community, IPI, the Fine Arts Boosters, and our staff, and it's a true effort by the community's support. Since we're going to be talking about the budget, we would not have that recognition and would not have that work done if that work attempted in the district without the support of the community to fund elementary strings, elementary orchestra, band, etc., and all the way on up through. And the Fine Arts Boosters working with our staff to making sure that every student has the opportunity to play an instrument if they wish. And the amount of kids that are participating at the younger stages, younger levels, has increased dramatically. BJM is a great example of the tremendous increase. So appreciate that, Dr. Brown.
Thank you.
So thanks, Dr. Brown. So we'll move on. So just want to do a quick rundown of the work session reports, and then we'll move on to budget items. So if we want to. Who's first? Oh, Ann, go ahead.
Okay, well, we've been busy. It's a busy time. Now that the budget is passed, we've been focusing on the legislation that would enable the district to have a health insurance reserve fund, which requires legislation. And so the bill, just as of today, there was a slight language tweak that was made, and it is still in committee, but people are actually paying attention to it right now. So that's a really good thing. So we're hopeful, but we're going to keep being persistent with this. It might require another trip to Albany to meet with legislators and aides and such like that. So that's one thing we've been working on. We also have had some interest from the community in what's going on with Smart Bond and how the fact that the state has been now 2 years to kind of follow through with that request, and the impacts that's having on not being able to make some safety improvements in our schools. So in terms of advocacy at a community level, that's something we've been thinking about and working on and been hearing about from the community. And then one of the other things that we've been working on to do with New Roots requested that their charter be expanded to include the middle school. And at this point, we have heard that there could be the SUNY Charter School Institute is not advancing their desire to do that at this time. So for next year, at any rate, it does not look like there will be a new charter middle school. So.
Great, thanks, Ann. Brad, go ahead. Looks like
Sure.
facilities.
Yeah, facilities. We're starting now on the path for doing some facilities planning as far as a bond project to take to the voters in May of 2019. We're also discussing whether we would begin to lay out a plan to do that every 2 or 3 years rather than wait the decade long that we have this time, actually 12 years. It will be in between those, make them smaller, make it more focused than the one before. So we're working on that. I know folks are interested in water and lead. We should have the water on in all the elementary schools come the fall, and then work through the middle schools and the high school and LICS during the school year next year. So we think we've got that finally getting wrapped up over the course of the next year, but at least for the elementary schools, those will be ready come fall. They'll have a number of new drinking fountains. It'll have bottle fillers, encouraging folks to use reusable bottles instead of single-use water. So those will be available as well.
And go ahead. Finance, if you can keep rolling.
Sure. Finance, obviously, we've been talking about the budget. We're going to have more conversation about that shortly. We've started to look at where we're going to be on reserves at year end and where we will go with those. We've had conversation about that. Excuse me, in the committee. Expect to have further conversation about that at our next meeting. So that we'll be ready come June to make decisions on that. As you'll recall, our last meeting in June, we'll have a resolution as to where to direct funds for reserves on June 30th. So that will be at the last meeting in June. So we're focused on that. We're going to be bringing food service to chat with them at our next meeting. As you know, budget process is year-long, and we're starting again, and we're going to start by looking at food service. And while that's not in the general fund, we do look at that, focus on that once a year to make sure we're all aware of what's going on and look that over.
And we have a new director of food service.
We have a new director of food service. So
Great opportunity to hear from
talk with her, and we look forward to it.
And certainly appreciated the last finance work session. Really, hour and a half or 2 hours, just going line by line through the budget. And Pat asking wonderful, profound, deep questions.
Well, short of the budget.
No, exactly. No.
Stealth budgeter.
Stealth budgeter.
Exactly.
So it's an opportunity really to do that deep dive one last time. And Chris, go ahead.
Human Resource is in the final stretches of tenure reviews. Our previous meeting, we had presentations or sharing from building leaders from Enfield, Fall Creek, and LACS. For folks who don't know, when we do the reviews, we have our building leaders present and share information on teachers that are up for 2018, and then we do a look ahead for anyone who's coming up for 2019, so we have some familiarity with these teachers and really go in depth reviewing, how they relate to the board priorities or the school district priorities. I apologize. And it's always amazing to me how the language changes because we speak to culturally responsive teaching and the entire student, and it's really a focus on a broader scale on how teaching is implemented within our buildings. I'm fortunate enough to have Moira and Pat on HR with me to help keep us focused and really pushing how we can improve on this process. So we have the next meeting, Bell Sherman, Cayuga Heights, and Northeast. And I think we have one school left after that until next year.
Nice job by Chris and HR. Moira.
Okay, right, well, the last meeting of the curriculum committee was on Monday, April 9th, and we had a variety of items on the agenda. We had an update on curriculum initiatives in math, middle school and elementary. So as has been happening, but it's moving forward, is moving toward more heterogeneous grouping at the middle schools. And so next year, DeWitt is ready to do heterogeneous grouping 6th through 8th grade. No, just the 8th grade. That's just the 8th grade.
I'm looking over there.
Yeah, no, 8th grade, great. Sorry, 8th grade, and then we got an overview of some of the initiatives that will be happening over the summer in terms of planning and professional development for differentiated instruction and math. Then we had a wonderful showing of a group of elementary teachers who have been working for the past year, Lydia, is it?
Yes.
On looking at the elementary math curriculum, and I have to say I found these teachers absolutely inspiring. They were so enthusiastic about teaching math, and they were really passionate about it, and talking about some of the things that they've been working on, and consistency and alignment of math instruction across the grades. And they're going to be moving to using what's called Eureka Math, which is the Engage New York math modules, and in their classes. And one of the things I found really wonderful about what they were talking about, the kind of thing that they're doing in their classrooms, and that's now spreading to other classrooms, is they're using a lot of talking about math. And as a former language arts teacher, I can really see how this is going to help children, not just in math, but across all subject areas. So talking about how did you go about doing this, solving this problem? How did you get to the answer? So that was very exciting to hear. We also had some discussion of the mental health as part of the curriculum. There's a mandate from the New York State Education Department that mental health needs to be incorporated into the curriculum this September. They've left it up to school districts to decide how. So there is a group that's meeting, PE teachers and health teachers and others to talk about how they're going to incorporate mental health in the curriculum. We had a brief discussion about the process for choosing texts, particularly in language arts, and just getting a sense of how is it done, and perhaps how can it be done better to ensure that our students are getting an experience that exposes them to a variety of diverse texts. So we'll be talking about that going forward. We have our next meeting is Monday the 30th, and then we're having an extra meeting on Thursday, May 3rd, 2 hours to look at the draft inclusion plan at 4 o'clock on Thursday, May 3rd. That's it.
Wow. Top that.
It was a lot.
I'm going to do my best to top that. You ready? Top that? Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm going to pack. No, I'm just messing with you. First, I want to make an announcement. This may have already been announced as well, but the book that board members have received this evening, Troublemakers by Dr. Carla Shalabi. Dr. Shalabi will be at Ithaca College on Thursday at 7 p.m. And so for folks in the community, it's open to everyone in the community. Please come join us. It's a powerful book, and looking forward to a powerful discussion and powerful presentation on IC's campus on this Thursday in a couple days.
Where is that, Sean?
Texter 103. I believe that's correct. It's center of Ithaca College campus, right by the Texter Ball, which folks may know hopefully as a historical monument, or at least a landscape monument that we can take a look at. In terms of policy, we've been somewhat busy. The main item that we are addressing for the next little bit is the student codes of conduct, plural, for elementary and for secondary, but much more importantly, a plain language code of conduct and the policy code of conduct. We'll be doing, board members will be receiving a schedule shortly in terms of how we're hoping to get this accomplished before the end of the school year, in preparation to have codes of conduct printed for the beginning of next academic school year as well. We'll be doing a good portion of that work on our next meeting, which is May 1st. From 4 to 6:30 p.m., most likely in this room as well, so please come join us for that conversation. In addition to the codes of conduct, we've been trying to work our way through the 5,000 series. We may not get there because we have a number of other pressing policy issues that are coming our way. So, for example, we are out of New York State compliance by not having a policy about food and labs, which will be coming up soon. We need to change our graduation participation policy that New York State has changed who is allowed to participate in graduation. Even if you have not received a New York State Regents diploma, you now have the opportunity to walk with your classmates. So we'll be passing that policy in short order to make sure folks can participate. A policy in regards to domestic and international field trips, which we'll be talking about. Also including to be in federal law compliance, parental involvements, a change in that language. And we're in the process of trying to look at policies around child abuse, but particularly around reporting in schools as well. And so those would be the next couple of policies that we're trying to work our way through over the next little bit, and hope folks will come join us for all those conversations.
Thanks, John.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. And I think Moira and Sean tie. So, so on to a small item, but it is the Ithaca City School District budget for 2018-19, and we've been working on this for a while, but we do need to address it today. One last time at this level.
Adoption of the budget is presented in the agenda.
Second?
Second by Pat.
Discuss.
Now we can certainly discuss, and
my team and I are here for questions. So we have no presentation this evening. So if there are additional questions, again, we had a lengthy conversation last Tuesday, was it? Yeah. In finance, and we answered a lot of questions then, but we're here if there are additional questions at this point. But
do you have the slides from 2 weeks ago?
On the website, I think.
Yeah.
Dr. Brown slides?
I'm saying, can you put, Dr. Brown slides, can you put those up? Just since we have the chance.
yeah, right, one more time.
One more time.
And as we're doing that, April 25th is the last and final deadline for those who wish to be a part of the ward election process. So those who wish to run need to get their petitions in tomorrow, speaking to those here in the room and those who are not in the room after tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Jennifer?
At 5, by 5
At
o'clock.
5 o'clock.
By 5.
By her clock.
By 5 o'clock.
Yeah, by 9 o'clock.
By the clock on the wall in Jennifer's office. But 5 o'clock tomorrow, that is the deadline.
And in addition to that, we're planning a teletown hall phone call again, and we're hoping that every board member is able to come in and be a part of that annual event now, where we call homes in our school community, and we share information about the budget, but also take a lot of questions. So we'll start promoting that also. And the public hearing, Jennifer, is also coming up too.
That same day, correct?
Same day. So
May 7th, correct?
May 7th is the day for that.
The May 7th hearing is required, so we are required to hold a budget hearing, and we do that at that date, and then we're going to do...
Advance the page that speaks to the items that were added.
Yeah.
Thanks.
The highlights page.
Yep.
Right here?
Thank you. I just wanted you to have the chance to go over the
Sure,
items that are
thank you for the
being added to the budget again, so that folks at home hear it.
and I'll again ask my team to come up. And we'll take some turns here because we can't talk about professional development without having Liddy and Laura both speak to some of the things that we're doing here. We're going to expand that. I spoke to some things earlier about our efforts to build new curriculum and add to our curriculum work. We're also talking with BOCES on some professional development as well. So if you wanted to share some quick highlights on PD, and then maybe while we're at it, talk about the inclusive summer school piece as well.
So for professional development, we do a lot year-round, but a big push we do is our summer professional development, and we have developed, which I think the curriculum committee has seen our, what I call our placemat, to really focus our professional development over the long term into our 3 key levers. That has been a focus that has really allowed teachers to start mapping their own way as lifelong learners. We got some input from Eldred about being really explicit that we are shifting the culture of professional development in this district. It is an expectation. It's not we hope you will. It is we expect you to be a lifelong learner. We expect you to find a journey within our roadmap, our placemat, and I feel that's a great recruitment tool. So if we say to potential teachers, we want you to be a lifelong learner, and we want you to take your own adventure. So on a large sense, it's really exciting that we're doing that. We are working on mental health professional development. What will that look like? In part with the curriculum that we're going to be adopting, working on, so I can speak to that more. And we're continuing what's been very successful in the budgetary sense is our lesson design days in the summer. Groups of teachers apply for slots in these 2 days of facilitated lesson design. Teams have to come as a team, and it's because that's what we believe works. You collaborate. And also we are very careful to have from pre-K through 12 in the room, because what we found is when a pre-K class or set of teachers can talk to 12th grade math teachers, they learn from each other. They're always skeptical in the morning, but by the end of the day, they're like, oh, so these connections to lifelong learning are just essential, and those are our main paid days in the summer. So in a budgetary sense, that is a key part of our ongoing professional development that our teachers are looking forward to. I think another piece budgetarily has been through some union contracts where we are increasing our professional development to not just teachers. It is all our staff. It is clerical. It is food service. It is transportation, buildings and grounds, nurses, and that we are all lifelong learners. That is very exciting.
So one other thing I'd like to add to that is the Inclusion Conference on July 30th and 31st. Very exciting. Dr. Brown talked about it last week and showed the card, but very exciting. We'll have Shiraki Holly here to do our keynote and 2 breakout sessions on the 30th, and then the 31st will be followed by some team work, working principals and their teams, superintendents and their teams working together. And then that will be followed up by, in Ithaca, and that's a statewide event, followed up in Ithaca with an additional planning day for the teams to continue on their work. Thinking about culturally responsive classrooms, leading for culturally responsive practice, and culturally responsive classroom management. So looking forward to that. Also this summer will be, and I'll talk to you more, when we look at an update on inclusion, is starting with our professional development aspect of My Brother's Keeper and starting to train, I'm calling them family engagement facilitators, starting to train some of our staff to help schools carry out family engagement, and we'll partner with the Title I's process so that we make sure that we have culturally responsive family engagement. Let's see. Oh, one other thing. There's so many things. Yeah. Just thinking about culturally responsive practice and inclusion. What we have kind of fleshed out over the course of this year is that we really need to work on instruction and making sure that our instruction is differentiated. So we've got a lot of offerings just about differentiated instruction, and so I'm very excited about that. for all different, from the special education perspective, from the general education perspective, so I'm excited about that.
And I think, tying all this to a budget that you're going to vote on is teachers are teaching teachers. So it's not Laura and I who are 12-monthers. We are paying teachers per their contract to plan and present for their fellow teachers. So it is, that's where we're spending our money, is our teachers getting paid to come, but also our teachers teaching each other and facilitating work together. So that's been work that we've built in the last 5 years.
And which will include the teachers on special assignment
Yes.
will be leaders of teachers.
Yes.
Jen Wilkie has done outstanding work the last couple of years, and if you ever look into our Insider, which is going to win some awards I'm going to announce next time, there are articles that Jen has produced about the work happening around our district around STEM. And next year we're going to be adding this culturally responsive, a toast for culturally responsive teaching practices. We hope to be advertising for that in the near future and bring an educator in to start to lead the equity mentor work, but it'll also support the curriculum development work as well.
And that, so the TOSA concept is just so strong in the district, and, no matter what their label is, they're meeting together, working together, sharing ideas together so that they can influence all areas of the district.
And our dream is to have a culturally responsive teaching practices certification program that we develop in-house. And so that TOAST is going to be a point person to lead that development over the summer, and hopefully we can roll out in the fall how one can be certified as an ICSD culturally responsive educator, which we are excited about.
Do you want me to speak to inclusive? Yeah. So we have pulled our summer school, which in the past has been called AIS Summer School, AIS for Academic Intervention Services. We had BOCES running it, and it was very cost effective, but it was not inclusive. So their charter with the state did not allow them to have students with 12-month IEPs be in this more integrated setting. So we were not able to offer for our students who qualify for 12-month services to be in an integrated setting. One of our 3 key levers is inclusion. And so we pulled this back in. So that is a budgetary piece that we're asking you to vote on. But we firmly believe, and I've already had conversations with families thanking me for doing this and saying, my student will get to be with his peers and gets to ride a bus for the first time this year because we're having it at Bell Sherman. And so we're working with our CSE chairs to be fully inclusive of students with 12-month IEPs. In addition to that, to be fully inclusive, it is not just academic intervention services. So we are making a fully inclusive environment that mimics what we have during the school year. So there are students that need some intervention in many academic areas. We're also going to have students that academically may not need any interventions, but this is a great opportunity for them to keep learning over the summer. We're excited to have it. It's 6 weeks long, so it's 2 weeks longer than the BOCES program was. And so, it's going to cost money, but we think it's a great enhancement to really year-long learning for students.
The part of that I'm excited about is that while in the first hour or so of the day, there'll be time for small group instruction and targeting the different skills that kids need to work on. But then after that, kids are going to go right into case study or problem-based learning and have, an opportunity to really think critically, to pursue questions, to engage in inquiry. So I think that's exciting to have that happening during the summer break.
I'm reminded, it was 6 years ago, we had to make some significant reductions to our summer school program. And that was one of those late hour conversations. And we restored some of it. At one point we talked about moving all of it out. We restored some of it, but it was a different program. Now we've been building that program back, and it's coming back as a different program that's going to serve our needs that have evolved since then.
And one of the exciting things is I think 3 years ago we wouldn't have been able to have a program like this because we wouldn't have had enough teachers to apply to spend the day doing project-based learning. And now we do. So now we can say we're going to do this, and teachers are like, really? So it's a time for them to practice what.
How many students are we looking
We feel we could probably afford up to 100 students, which is what we've done in the past. This year we're doing K through 8. That's the other thing we're expanding, is that we've always done a K through 5, and middle school has been left
Yeah, we have
for
no
nothing.
program.
We've done nothing for middle school for years and years.
What do we do for high school?
High school, there are a couple of options. We run, I think they call it Summer Academy at the high school. They also have some options up at BOCES. Yeah, so we do not have that for the high school, but middle school, it has been this, we've literally had to say, I'm sorry, we don't have anything for you, but now we are offering it K through 8, which is very exciting.
That's great.
The last two items up there, the security enhancements, we're expanding our software program, so Navigate Prepared, to be more specific, we're going to expand that to all buildings next year, and we're adding an administrative position, not an administrative, but an administrative position to help us with our implementation of the additional video cameras and surveillance systems. That's the security enhancement piece. And then finally, the administrative supports, we're adding a master educator to the high school. And we're getting, again, back, we eliminated some master educators from the high school 4 or 5 years ago when we had the budget constraints. We're adding that support back into that structure as we see a need for observations and some other administrative support. And there will be a reorganization of the admin team at the high school too, we'll talk about outside of the budget process, but budgetarily, we're adding an administrative position there. And we're adding an assistant principal position at Enfield Elementary to support that administrative team in different ways next year as well. I think those were the things that are happening. Yeah.
The mental health.
Oh, and you mentioned it briefly, but let's add.
So the mental health, we're starting with looking at what curriculum we have for students. So this is as you know, a many-fingered project, because we have the mental health of all our adults in the system, and then all our children. And so the children need curriculum so they get that explicit teaching. So we had our first district-wide meeting, which included folks from all different disciplines. It was K-12, it was everything from nursing to social work to psychology to guidance, you name it, we had a representative there. So we're gonna work through a process of looking at, we started by looking at some rubrics from BOCES and the Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning. And then comparing some of the programs that we have in place right now, which are zones of regulation and second step, comparing that to the rubrics to see where do things shake out, how does it compare. And then we ended our conversation, this is our first meeting, ended our conversation with, what are the outcomes for high school and, what do the high school kids need? And so we're gonna start our next meeting with then working backwards down through, if this is what our high school needs, what are the different programs that we'll need to put in place to make sure we meet those outcomes?
What additional resources, I'm sorry, what additional resources are being
Well,
devoted there?
There's going to be professional development, but there's also going to be materials. So adopting a curriculum will mean buying the resources for the teachers to teach it, for the students to whatever.
And we're allocating $200,000 one-time funding for some of the study, some of the materials, and some potential staffing if we find that is
Right, because curriculum is what I would say, the quality first instruction. So also, how do we support students that are at risk in crisis? And I think, the high school spoke to that, they're looking for a safe space. So that's something that's exciting that is student generated. So how do we partner with the students to see what they need? And so again, we're not exactly sure what resources we're gonna spend that on. And how do we support that? And then we're having larger conversations about mental health supports for students, and how do we partner with the local mental health providers, and what do we do in-house? How much do we take on? What is our role? And trying to figure that out, and then what resources do we put towards that? The third level is, how do we take care of our adults? What kind of support systems do we need to put in place for them? Is it a yoga class every month? Is it something else? Is it a safe space for adults? And I think so. We're not exactly sure, but we're looking at all those areas.
And who's your committee?
Well, we have more than one.
We have more than one. So we have an administrative committee, which is Liddy, myself, Dr. Dundali, Kathy Sinnott,
and
Sheila, Bob,
and Amanda.
And then we have the selection, curriculum selection committee, that's the K-12 group. We have psychologists, social workers, guidance, teachers, and eventually what I'd like to do with that group is to spread it out a little bit, so when we get a little closer to thinking about what we might suggest and taking it to teachers and community member students to see feedback too. So that's the selection, curriculum selection.
Is there going to be more of a focus on the high school? Because it sounded like from what you were saying, Liddy, that you were starting with the high school and moving backwards. Is there a reason why we're not looking at elementary, preventing issues before growing?
The first meeting went that way, elementary up.
And then the second meeting is going to be coming as high school down, because we need to look at what are the outcomes for our graduates. So kind of back mapping. So what are the outcomes for our graduates, and then how will we be sure to meet those starting from kindergarten, pre-K, all the way on up.
So they actually started at pre-K and elementary, and it's the second meeting that they're working back down.
And so I think our challenge really is going to be in the high school with the explicit teaching is how do we schedule for that? I think that's probably going to be one of our biggest challenges.
If you're working with, are you working with people within each school also, or does that come later?
No, on this group, there are representatives from every school.
Every school.
School psychologists, school social workers.
Okay. And the mandate for teaching and incorporating this into the...
It doesn't go much further from mental health in the curriculum.
Right. But that's something you guys are taking on also at the same time?
Right, and so social emotional learning is a broader umbrella which mental health goes under. Additionally, I've been working with Josh Chase, who oversees PE and health in the district, and they have within their curriculums aspects. They always have had aspects of, personal health, personal mental health, stress, anxiety. But again, it's very minimal, and so.
And there are little pieces of it in a variety of places. There's a little bit in the health curriculum. There's a little bit,
like in FCS and health in the middle school and health in the elementary schools. But again, it's little pieces. We need to figure out a plan.
I'm a huge fan of the Zones of Regulation program after having gone to DTRM and watched it in action. It's fascinating. For those of you who don't know what it is, the kids are basically being empowered to regulate their own emotional states. So we sat down at tables and they told us, if I use this toy, if I use this tool, I can get from red, which is the angry stage, back down to, I guess, whatever the next stage is. And at each station, a person who came up to my knee was telling me about how to regulate emotional states. Right? So I don't know how it compares to the other things, but it was fascinating to see that they were self-selecting, they were developing a consistent language, and they were really dealing with topics that would be challenging for us at this table to navigate.
And they weren't using,
weren't using the words depression, right? They weren't using stigmatizing words. They were using words about their actual emotional states. So kudos to Susan for promoting that, and to the extent that we can broaden that for only benefit all of these kids.
Yeah, I think one of the big things is teaching kids the words. We're not always just mad. We may actually be ashamed. We may be humiliated, and then what's that little space between acknowledging what I am feeling and what I do? And how do we increase that space? Because you have that power. That's the regulation. It's, I'm feeling this, I recognize it, and before I act, let me do a little evaluation. And in a very appropriate way, even in kindergarten, we're talking to kids about increasing that space.
Something things that came up in the selection committee, which I was very pleased about, are making sure that our mental health curriculum includes upstander, learning how to be an upstander, and includes implicit bias. So I think that those are two good upgrades and additions when we're selecting and thinking about programs.
Other questions?
Wow, what a long way we've come in a decade. A little different budget conversation than I remember when I was first on the board. A little better.
Well,
one additional question. So we were in a meeting recently with EILC, and someone asked one of the school counselors how well we do in this community at serving youth and their mental health needs across the board, and the answer was not very well. We just don't have, we might have the private resources of folks who can work across all ages, but people specifically focus on young people who are eligible to come and do it for us. We seem to be in very scant supply.
In the community?
In the community.
Yes.
A group like Office of Family and Children Services are booked for 9 years.
Yes.
Right? So it's one thing to say we're interested. I'm not asking you, but I have to say the word in the question form. How do we get the resources? How do we bring them to bear? Right?
And that's one of the, with our administrative mental health team is like, what is our role, right? When we have there's not enough mental health providers in the community for children. And so do we take that on? How do we take that on? Can we afford to take it on?
Yeah, but I'm hoping we expand the conversation. I mean, this word mental health, this term mental health is being tossed around a lot now. So what does that mean? I'm hoping that we have 1,100 plus first responders to mental health. Whether we're teaching young people how to play outside, work out in the gym, or to work with their peers, that to me is mental health. A young person in crisis or with a disability is a different type of mental health need. The type of professionals that are going to be needed to go into a young person who's experiencing significant trauma because of incarceration or whatever it may be isn't a capacity that we have much of right now. But to help a baby understand how to connect with others in the classroom space, a young person how to have an active and physically fit lifestyle, we do that and we're going to continue to do that well. So I'm hoping over the next year, because I'm struggling with this term, we're throwing it around. I have been doing it, we talk about mental health and we hope it covers everything. And we're struggling with where the resources are going to come to support certain aspects of it. I don't know if we all have a common understanding of mental model around what it is that we're even talking about anyway.
That's a good question. Specifically, I can tell you what I meant. I meant depression and anxiety, right? I meant self-infliction of harm, short of suicide, and trauma-informed curriculum, right?
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up because that is something we have already started, is the trauma-informed instruction, working with BOCES. And so I think that may be a part of our action plan to at least get, really ramp that up for teachers so that they can understand trauma that students are going through, that they've been through. So like that's a lot of the co-work that has to happen. And then how do we work with students before any of that, so that in hopes of creating students who are resilient and
this may be stating the obvious, but I was reminded of this, that at the conference that Ann and Eldrin and I went to, a number of people were saying, we need to be talking about mental wellness. And that,
you said that.
And that, so that as we do this work, just having a sense, well, over here are talking about the folks, who've experienced trauma and have the kind of needs that Eldred was just talking about, but that for all of our children, how are we addressing and fostering mental wellness?
That's a good point.
The phrase we're using on campus is mental well-being, and I can just say to you, having this conversation, this is not a K through 12 conversation. And part of me is saying, even at private institutions, we lack the significant resources to be able to address what's taking place. And it does not absolve us of any responsibility, but we may be the national model if we do this right. That there seems to be more and more communities I'm having conversations with are experiencing significant shortages of how to treat having to teach different ways of how students are raised, but also what happens when we become young adults or adults, right? We're facing the same sort of shortage, right? We have a 3-month wait for our mental well-being clinic, right? That's not acceptable in any community, right? So I think the fact that we're applying some significant resources helps us, and you're right about that language mental model helps us as well.
Sharing language and reducing stigma would go a hell of a long way.
Yeah, it would go a long way.
Which I think,
Whatever.
what's the purpose of the state mandate, as I understood from that conference? It's like, that seemed to be one of the main ambitions of it, was to decrease stigma.
Yes, yes.
And the part that I see too is just helping everybody in the classroom, adults or children, learn how to develop the relationships to stay connected, so that we have, open lines of communication, we have people to talk to, and ways to problem solve. And, those are a lot of lifelong skills. It's not going to end even at college.
And I'm more than happy to have a state mandate written particularly vague, so because we want to be able to build it here, because what we build and what we do is going to be different than most other districts. We're going to go to another level. Our expectations are going to be different than others, and so I'm frankly okay that we can come up with this as a community, as a district, and yes, it is going to be on this district to serve the children of this community. And I said it before, we can't look to the county or look to the city for this. It's on us, and we are embracing it, and I appreciate the work that's occurred, but certainly there's much that we will do. Right. And Brad, yes, this is different than other budget day conversations that we've had.
I just have a question, not about mental health. It's just for clarification. So last week when I was looking over the budget, I realized I didn't see anything that explicitly said anything about pre-K and where we, how much money we spend on pre-K. So Amanda explained that it was under item 99, transfers, the federal interfund transfer, and then she added a note that says that includes funds for 12 pre-K classrooms as well as the summer school, K-8 summer school. The clarification I need is that this says 12 pre-K classrooms, and on the district website, on the early childhood page, it lists us having 10 classrooms the next year. So, anybody know the answer on how many?
There's 12.
There's 12 now.
There's 12 now, okay.
Yeah, we're going to keep 12.
Okay, well, then the district website is missing two. Yeah, okay.
We added 2 a few years ago, and I think
we did go down to 10 during the fiscal crisis.
Okay, so, all right.
We need to
So it's,
update our website.
yeah, because it's,
Do that tonight.
yeah, look at the
Thank
page.
you.
It lists 10.
Yes.
So,
Thank you, that's an important point.
Thank you, Laura.
Correct.
Other comments, questions, clarifications needed? What's the budget amount again, Brad?
$128,466,376.
Proposed spending amount
For the general fund.
for the general fund. Just to be clear. Any, all had opportunity to ask questions a variety of different ways and different times. Anything else at this time? All in favor? That is everyone. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Angela. We mentioned Angela Jordan in the past. If you sat in the work session, finance work session, then Angela had her, what's the...
Abacus.
Yeah, exactly. Her electronic abacus, but newer, it was, can't do it without staff and can't do it without the building leaders and obviously the exec team here in this building, but all the building leaders throughout the district, and the hard work by the Well, the folks on the board that serve on the various committees, that all, it's not just finance or it's not just facilities, all the committees and the work session topics all flow into the budget one way or the other. So we appreciate everybody's work all year round. And there you go, Dr. Brown, you have another budget to run with.
Yeah, now we go out and raise $120 million.
Well, let's look forward to the budget vote in May.
Yeah.
And folks continue to ask us questions if you have any questions, and we'll look forward to seeing you all at the polls.
Exactly. Well, from there, we move on to international field trip to...
I'll move acceptance of the field trip to Paris in 2019.
I'll second it.
We're here to answer any questions about it. If you have any of the teachers on here, but Lydia has been working with that team.
I have one thing.
You can go first.
Okay. One thing that jumped out at me is on the page which describes the curricular basis and what students will be required to do. I had a question because it talks about all the students who are participating will be asked to prepare and present an oral presentation on one of the sites. And one of the bullet points said, if student is in one of my classes, and this would be Janet, this presentation will count as a test grade. Our policy explicitly says that no grades or tests can be attached to any optional trip, so.
I think we just need to have her take that out and clarify that. I saw that after I met with her. We were talking more about generalities and also inclusion of as many students as possible, and I missed that. So I will let her know that.
For that reason, are we tabling this to another date, next meeting?
I think we should vote on the actual.
I would think.
Yeah,
Great. And I think it would be, I think that in her defense, I think I did not communicate well about this meeting, and so I don't want to say that like she skipped it or anything.
No.
So.
She may not have read our policy thoroughly, do you think?
Yeah, I usually, I send them a copy of it and then meet with them. And so, this was partly on me in that I usually go line by line. So
Yeah.
both she and I missed that.
The policy is mostly logistics and safe travel.
Yeah. Right. And so I think that part.
I'll move the table.
I'll second the table.
Second by Sean.
Great. We'll make sure that you can make it. Yes.
All in favor? Do you want to speak?
I do.
Speak to it?
I can wait till after we vote as long as I have a second to speak to it.
We'll speak now.
So, as part of our policy as well, we also are trying to make these trips as accessible as possible. This is a fairly expensive trip, and I think for families of middle means that it will be a struggle to be able to find the $3,500 or $3,000 to make happen. And so I would like to see, or I would humbly request that we think about additional ways to raise money to make the trip affordable to as many students as possible. I'm not sure what that looks like. There's only a couple suggestions here. I know that requires additional work, but I think anytime we can support our students having an international travel experience, it's a phenomenal thing that we should be doing. But to make that as affordable to families would be great.
And I foresaw that because I know you guys. And I had said to her, I hope that you can come with more suggestions that are on this paper. So I think, I felt confident that she will do that.
Fantastic. Great.
Appreciate that. So a few items to take care of, and we'll... all in favor on tabling until the next meeting? Thank you. That's everyone, and Eldred stepped out. So we're going to move on and wrap things up. Policies?
Yes, this policy 5421, communicable diseases, was part of our policy in our conversation around immunizations. We tabled this policy in particular for the last sentence that you can see that's in bold. We were trying to have additional conversation with our medical professionals about what happens if there should be a communicable disease outbreak, students who have not been immunized, and what does it mean for students who are quote unquote medically fragile. And so we're trying to have a conversation about what is our policy and our process around medically fragile students. Do we force them out of school? What takes place in the language that we rested on, again, in consultation with our medical professionals, that our medical staff will be in direct communication with any students and caregivers who have known medical frailties. That's the best case scenario that we came up with. Is that accurate, Pat and Mark?
Yes.
So I'll move policy 5421 for a second reading and adoption this evening as presented.
Second.
By Moore, asked, answered, explained, looked at it multiple times. Are we good? All in favor? That is not everyone. That's Moira, Sean, Rob, Pat, Brad, and Ann, and Chris. Those opposed? Those abstaining? Will be Nicole. And Eldred is still away from the desk. And one of the final items, well, we're still going to go over. Resolution regarding 1819 tentative administrative budget of TST Board of Cooperative Educational Services. Our annual vote on the administrative budget for BOCES. It is before you. And
I'll move the BOCES administrative budget.
I'll second it.
Second by Pat. So we had a motion to move it and a second. Do we need to talk about this anymore? Very good. So all in favor? That'd be Maura, Sean, Rob, Pat, Nicole, Ann, and Chris, and those opposed, those abstaining would be Brad and Eldred missed it. So,
Did he abstain or
Eldred was out of the room. Brad abstained. Am I correct?
Eldred was out of the room. I abstained.
Right. Yeah. And another BOCES resolution, but this is to the election of 3 members to the Board of Tokens.
I'll move the
Seneca,
resolution to
etc.
fill the vacancies on TST BOCES as presented in the agenda.
Second.
Some are Pat's, and these are folks I believe that are currently serving, but they are as indicated. We good? All in favor? That's everyone. Oh, that's not everyone. Everyone but Sean. Sean is abstaining. So very good. So we have 1 abstention on those positions. Well, there you go. In a roundabout way, we're at the end. Other discussion items? Was there anything else, Dr. Brown? Do you have anything?
No events coming up.
Okay.
There is a special celebration for Sandy and Jay True on Monday evening at the college. And Brad spent a lot of many years of service on this board and others, and the community is going to be recognizing and celebrating him and his wife. On Monday.
Citizen of the Year.
Citizen of the Year. And I think one of our board members is going to be the MC for the ceremony. Brad is.
What time is that?
I plan to be there as well.
All right, well, this is
I think it's 6 p.m., if I'm not mistaken.
It's at 6 p.m. on Monday. 5:30 p.m. 5:30.
Emerson Suites.
Emerson Suites, 5:30 on Monday.
I have one point of information.
We're talking this next Monday.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Sweet. 6. Elder, did you have something?
Yeah, just wanted to point out that this evening, the Healthy Foods for All group was hosting an event which they wanted us to attend. Unfortunately, they made it the same night as our board meeting.
Right.
But they were honoring Denise Agabi for her service. And I just wanted to
thank you for that.
Give her a shout out again. I certainly would have been there to honor her myself if I could have, but I hope the event went well.
Absolutely. For those who are keeping track at home, I did send the invitation to to my wife just to let her know that, again, Denise has done an outstanding job. I did say, Judy, check out the menu. So it would have been, I could have gone, but it was very healthy beans and stuff, which I probably, it would have been, it would have been a stretch for Rob on that menu. But Denise just really took over and did an outstanding job, and we certainly appreciate her efforts. Anything else? Obviously, upcoming dates of importance we talked about tomorrow. There will be a board hearing on May 7th at 6, I believe, in this room. That's for the community to come and ask questions. Between now and May 15th, I assume there's going to be a few opportunities to hear candidates that in a few different places, I believe. But we'll hear about that, and that will be made known, especially to those who are running. So.
Vote on May 15th?
Vote on May 15th, 12 to 9, at a polling place near you. And Jennifer, you've got everything arranged, lined up, doing outstanding job with the election as always. So, without further ado, and no one having anything else, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
So what's tomorrow again? Tomorrow?